Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We're going to get started shortly. Please take your seats. Let me know when you're ready, Anita.
I'm ready when you are, Councilmember.
Go right ahead.
Roll call. Councilmember Morrell.
Here.
Councilmember McCarron. Here. Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Green. Here. Councilmember Hughes. We have 3 members. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We're going to start with the approval of the minutes for the February 5th meeting. Councilman Green moves favorably, seconded by Councilman McCarron. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
3 yeas, no nays. The minutes are approved favorably. We are going to go through our appointments. First up, we have Dawn Hebert for the City Planning Commission. I saw her in the audience. Her forms are in hand and in order. Dawn, as you're coming up, I'll ask you the same question I ask everybody. Why do you want to be on the City Planning Commission?
I want to be on this committee because I have attended so many CPC meetings, which you all know. So I'm very interested in voting for the community because I know they are here to support their community and equality of life. Also, on the agenda items that I have sat through, it appears as though many of the community share the same issues. So being on this commission, I think I will be able to see their point of view, because I have seen where sometimes voting happens not the way the people want, and I think that is very important. So I'm really excited, honestly, to be on this commission because I know it's very important. And as a matter of fact, I will be leaving my position with Enoch as to not have any ethical or any other problems, being on the commission. So I want to thank whoever nominated me for this, and I'm really looking forward to it. So do you all have any questions?
We don't have any for you. I'll move to approve. Can I get a second? Second by Councilmember Green.
Yes, no question, but I just want to say thank you. I see you at so many meetings, and you're so interested in the community. I know New Orleans, well, here's Mr. Hughes to speak for the district that he represents, but he came in right on time. But I appreciate your work that you do and your commitment to the community, especially New Orleans East.
Thank you, Eugene.
Mr. Hughes, you want to add anything?
Ditto.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Anthony Jackson, City Planning Commission. His forms are in order and received on time. Mr. Jackson, why do you want to be on the City Planning Commission?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We need to.
Good morning, City Council.
Excuse me, Councilmember, can we get the vote?
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Green, it was a yes.
Yes.
As was Mr. Hughes.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Good morning, City Council.
You're not sorry. I know. Close it out. Why do you want to be on the City Planning Commission?
Yes, sir. The reason for me wanting to serve on the City Planning Commission is to help assist with shaping the development in the community of New Orleans East, but also use influence to serve the needs of the people and let their voices be heard, also to reduce blight and to enhance businesses coming to New Orleans East and new developments. That's it.
Thank
You have any questions?
Thank you again for your willingness to serve, and you've been very involved in the community, especially New Orleans East. These 2 appointments of the City Planning Commission could make a tremendous difference for the community that I'm just familiar with. I don't necessarily represent it, but I do have a part of New Orleans East in my district. But of course, to provide the vast majority of it is in Councilman Hughes' district.
All right, I'll move approval. I get a second? Second by Councilmember Hughes. All in favor, vote your machines. 4 yeas, no nays. You are approved. Thank you, Jackson. Next up, we have Andy
Councilmember
Plessis,
Harris.
Regional Transit Authority.
We got 5.
Oh, sorry, there you go, 5. All right, Mr. Plessis, why do you want to be on the RTA?
Good morning, City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to give you some insight as to why I think it's very important that I serve on RTA's board. As we know, transportation is perhaps the most important mobility tool that helps with economic development. I think that my background in banking, finance, as well as the my past service, community service, gives me insight to help create the economic development that the city needs with our most underserved. I'm also very interested in bringing back regionalism and regional cooperation. I think it's important that not only do we provide transportation, reliable transportation for individuals who are needing to get to work in other places, but to ensure that wherever they want to travel, they have the reliable transportation. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Councilman Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to talk specifically about RTA, but I just want to put this on the record. We have 4 residents from District E that's being confirmed today. You know, traditionally, as I look back at boards and commissions over the years, rarely did District E get appointments across the board. Once again, we have a mayor that's walking the talk when she said that she would be a mayor for this entire city. So I want to publicly thank Madam Mayor for ensuring that the talent of District E is represented on these boards and commissions. Senator Duplessis, thank you for once again answering the call to serve at this consequential moment. And the comments that I'm about to make applies to all of the very qualified nominees for RTA. Thank you for pledging to return the R back to RTA and making it a regional transit authority. Because as we look to grow our city, we have to think more regionally. You, Senator Duplessis, as a private sector banker, understands that we have to stop looking at transportation in this city as just through the lens of a low-income issue. When you look at progressive cities across America, when you look at Atlanta and New York and Washington, D.C. and Chicago, the banker is sitting next to the bartender. The artist is sitting next to the architect. The electrician is sitting next to the engineer. The chemist is sitting next to the cosmetologist. The list will go on and on and on and on and on. You know, my residents in District E, the lower 9th Ward, New Orleans East, on any given day could take an hour to get from New Orleans East to downtown. And God forbid you miss that bus, grossly unacceptable. And I hope you all, once and for all, will look into the cluster that is this transfer on Lake Forest and Reed. One day someone is going to get killed as they're being dropped off from one side, dashing to the other side through speeding traffic because they know if they miss that bus, they'll be waiting for quite some time. And far too many shelters, finally, bus shelters in my community are missing, forcing residents to have to wait in the hot sun, wait in the rain, and all types of weather conditions. So we have a lot of work ahead of us at RTA, but I know that you and the qualified nominees are up to the task. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all of your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Hughes moves to approve, second by Councilmember Green. There you go. All in favor, vote your machines. 5 yeas, no nays. Before it's a full council for approval. Next up, we have Erica Mann, Regional Transit Authority. Why do you want to be on the RTA, Erica?
Good morning. Well, my life has been service, and right now I'm still working in service at the Drives YMCA, a retired school leader in Jefferson, Orleans. Transportation is not just a system of getting people to and from places on a bus or a streetcar. It's actually a means of equity. It's how we get to work, which of course builds economic growth, how we get to medical appointments, school. Too many times I've driven to work like this morning with no light, and children are standing waiting to be picked up in the cold, dark rain, sometimes the heat, and when they get out of practice in the evening. That type of thing, of course, moves me. It's the work that I do. Being able to see our members have opportunities to come to the facility to work out, that are disabled, they're getting door-to-door service. Those things are very important, and there's space for us to improve, but we do have to consider what their needs are. And the biggest part of why I want to serve is to fulfill the need that our people have, because those are the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis.
All right, Councilmember Green.
I just want to say thank you to you. I know you well. I know you through your work with Dryads. I know you as a resident of District D. I also want to congratulate you on your daughter's successes leading their schools to championships such as Southern and UNO and LSU in soccer. But most important is thank you for your service to Dryads and your commitment to our community. And as the chair of transportation, the issues that Councilman Hughes referred to are very, very real. And I think with these three folks who are going to be joining the RTA and the mayor's commitment, we will be able to make changes in those areas. So thank you very much. Looking forward to working with you.
Councilmember Harris.
Erica, I just want to say thank you for everything you do. While you are a resident of District D, I do consider you also a resident of District B because you work so tirelessly at the Dryads YMCA and for the entire District B community. So I know that you know the transportation issues, including the lack of bus stops, sheltered bus stops. So we do have children standing out in the rain and the sun, elders standing out in the rain and the sun. And this is something that I've tried to address with RTA since taking office and never got a good answer about how we can mitigate that. So with this new leadership, Senator Duplessis, yourself, everybody else who's going to join RTA, I know that we look forward to a good relationship moving forward that will move our people forward in public transportation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, Erica. I will move. Can I get a second? Second by Councilmember Harris. All in favor, please vote your machines. 5 yeas, no nays. You will be sent to the full council for approval. Next up, we have Miss Barbara Major, the infamous Barbara Major. More than famous.
The Barbara Major.
Good morning.
Why do you want to be on the RTA? And I'm sure you got called late at night. Someone said you got to go fix something, so then you're here today, right?
Sort of, kind of. One of the reasons is I remember what RTA was. I remember what it was after Katrina. I know how dedicated the staff was there and what kind of transportation system we built. I too believe in regionalism, that we cannot continue to keep people locked in geographically because they can't get from point A to B to C. The other thing is our most vulnerable population, our disabled, our elderly, and what has happened to paratransit at RTA is, y'all think of the words. It's just, when I hear about people waiting 2 hours at dialysis or folk can't get from their son's funeral, it's unacceptable. And the fact, and I think, I don't know who it was, maybe it was you, Councilman, I've already talked to folk at RTA, go like, chairman, because no matter where I go, they still think of me as chair. I'm not chairman of the RTA, I'm on the board. It's like, there's no reason for folk, it take that long for people to get from the east to downtown. It makes no sense that we have folk that get to Jefferson Parish at 10:30, but the Jefferson Parish bus leaves at 10 o'clock. So one of the things is not only to protect those that ride public transit. I also understand, because I've been a part, and I have chaired that board before, the economic impact is critical in terms of not only contracting, but the accessibility of folk getting from point A to B to get better jobs or to live wherever they want to live and get back to their community. So I won't say I want to be on the RTA board, I'll say I have to be for a moment anyway, just to clean up some of the allegedly foolishness over there. But I'll wait till I get there to see if it is what they say it is. And if it is what they say it is, you know, I ain't got no problem telling people to leave, you know, correctly and lawfully. But, yeah, that's it. Any questions?
I'll move to approve. Second by Councilmember Hughes, please vote your machines. 5 yeas, no nays. Thank you, Ms. Major. Next up, we have Daphne Young with the New Orleans Recreation Department Commission. Why do you want to be on NORDC, Ms. Young?
Good morning. How can I follow that? Thank you. The reason why I want to be on NORD Commission is because I believe in fitness, but I believe that fitness is not only in your physical being, it's also in your mental being. And I walk the parks every day. I'm a 3 to 4 time park walker. Walking, I see my seniors out there, I see my youth out there, and I see families out there. And we have to have vibrant parks in not only New Orleans East, but across the city to make sure that our youth, that our families, and our seniors have a park to go to, that are vibrant, connected to each of the organizations around them, and that they can get wellness and cultural activities there. So I'm there because I want to make sure that every citizen in this city, especially in my District E, are vibrant and connected to the community with wellness and health and well-being for all families. Any questions?
Councilmember Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. Ms. Young, thank you, too, for answering the call to serve. Proud member of District E.
Yes.
But I just want to say on record, you know, when we think of NORD, we often think of our youth, which everyone knows is at my heart. But you and I both have mothers that are now up in age,
Yes.
but very vibrant. And so as we think of NORD, we have to think of everyone holistically. And so I'm glad that not only our youth, but our seniors are going to be on your radar. So thank you for that.
We're excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hughes moves. I will second. All in favor, please vote your machines. 5 yeas, no nays. You'll be sent to the full council for approval. Thank you. We're going to go a little out of order on 5. First, we're skipping 4. We're going to go to 5, Anita, and we're going to start with 5B. So downtown development, please come on down. Okay. He's on ground. See? Julia, why don't you go wrangle the show? I think the guy just came in and Jared went out. They're doing the musical chairs. All right, whenever you're ready.
Morning. Thanks for giving me some time today to talk about some of the issues related to Mardi Gras cleanup in the downtown development district. So the primary issue that we've seen this year, and I believe it's been the case in prior years as well, is a large accumulation of waste and debris under the bleachers along St. Charles Avenue. It also stretches onto Canal Street where there are bleachers present. But this year we really noticed that there's not a consistent schedule for either taking down the bleachers or removing the waste underneath. And so it's caused a bit of a challenge for us. Sanitation department does a great job following the parades and cleaning up everything that they can get to, but generally these areas under the bleachers are inaccessible for good reason to people. And then when they come down, some of the property owners do a good job removing their own debris, but some clearly do not. And as we had some windy days at the end of Mardi Gras week this year, we had a lot of debris blowing around, frankly, not just on St. Charles Avenue, but on some of the side streets as well. And so in sum, it takes us, I'd say, between 7 and 10 days to really completely clean up after Mardi Gras. And that's due in no small part to the staggered schedule for bleacher removal and the sort of inconsistent removal of debris under the bleachers as well. So for us, I mean, we have regular cleaning crews that are downtown 7 days a week. We do invest in additional labor around Mardi Gras, but because we don't know when the bleachers are going to be coming down for any given property owner or right-of-way, it makes it difficult for us to schedule additional labor. And so what we end up having to do is divert some of our daily labor that's otherwise would be deployed elsewhere in the district.
Councilmember Harris.
I understand the issue, and I've certainly gotten all the emails about the bleachers being up, but let me just note that the Gallagher Hall stands are still up too. So I hate to be hypocritical here when I say that we need a schedule for everybody to take the bleachers down.
So to the city's credit, the bleachers in front of City Hall and on Lafayette Square, the cleaning is done underneath, And so we don't have the same debris issue with those bleachers.
But my point is this taking down, having a schedule and a set time or a set deadline for taking down the stands, not only public but also private, is something that I think we need to examine and get into place.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think, walking around, Ash Wednesday, I think it makes sense. People see the sort of cleanup from Mardi Gras happening, but then when people are having to walk around bleachers like a week or two later, it's confusing, I think, for tourists and others, like, why is this here? And, in the case of St. Charles at Poydras, folks have to cross over to the other side of the street because it takes the full depth of the sidewalk up to the Federal Reserve.
And I would also note that there were reports of encampments growing up underneath some of the bleachers. And so, again, I think just having a set time or a set deadline for the removal of any privately erected stands needs to happen.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful, and would also encourage you all to consider whether the, existing permit structure is getting the results that we want relative to cleanup after.
Yeah, I do have a question about permits. I do think we need to strengthen that, as well as maybe increase the amount of fees that we charge for the permitting process for stands, not only in the DDD, but also along St. Charles where we see businesses erecting stands. Again, that may or may not be there for weeks after Mardi Gras.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Before you get up, Seth, I appreciate you being here today, and Matt's right behind you, but I do think that something we might want to consider is that for stands that aren't going to show that they have an established sanitation contract with a private person, that maybe they prepay sanitation for cleanup, thereby the downtown development or sanitation could at least be reimbursed for it, because many of these private stands, people sometimes get charged money to go in the stands, and it is especially kind of egregious that someone can profit from utilizing the stands and the city and taxpayer dollars have to clean up the mess afterwards. So I do think that working with Councilmember Harris and other council members, changing that permit to include language saying this is how many days the stand can stay up, and then you get fined afterwards, and potentially saying either you have to show you have a sanitation contract or prepay sanitation and do the work, I think those might create better actors. Because right now, I would imagine, and Matt can speak to it, I guess, when he comes up, there really is no incentive to move quickly or to clean up after yourself.
Yeah, I think you've accurately diagnosed the situation.
Okay, thank you, Seth. I think that's everyone. Matt, you're up. Matt, I don't know if you caught the tail end of Seth's presentation, but basically he's talking about how all the stands are left up throughout downtown, and then when they move the stands, all the trash is still there waiting for you or downtown development.
Yes, very familiar with it. Okay. Okay. Well, good morning, Council. Thank you so much for having us here. It's always great to see you all once Mardi Gras is over. I think, to keep it short and sweet, it was a very successful Mardi Gras 2026 from a cleanup perspective. All things went smoothly. We are extremely grateful to the efforts that were put in to ensure that parades rolled on time, which they did for the most part this year, which directly translated to an earlier end time for our parade cleanup, which means workers are out on the routes, less time getting home to get some valuable sleep before they come back in the next day to clean up, and all of the related city services that go along with that also get off the roadway even earlier. So we did see an increase in overall tonnage associated with Mardi Gras 2026, a 24% increase from last year. This, to us, was directly associated with the larger crowds. Anybody who was out at Mardi Gras this year definitely took note. There seemed to be more people enjoying in the carnival season, which is great for the city. I know last year we also were coming out of the terrorist incident on Bourbon Street and had some other things that contributed to probably lower attendance at Mardi Gras parades. So certainly not unexpected this year, but we always do like to take note, around that to see where we're trending. I know Seth spoke about the issue with stands in the DDD, and when they come down, the debris that's left. One of the biggest challenges that our cleanup crews continue to deal with is the issue of plastic bags. So plastic bags are used to contain individual throws. As those throws are unwrapped, the bags are discarded over the side of a float. And in wind situations and any normal situation, those bags blow all over the city. So you have certain days where parades are rolling, where the cleanup may not happen for hours after that parade rolls. You have individual bags that are blowing into neighborhoods, into persons' private properties. And when we're cleaning up, especially as the crew moves down St. Charles to the downtown area, the wind will pick up, and it will become quite a challenge to get those bags. So I know in at least several days this year we had high winds, and it extended our cleanup time to chase down those bags, which we're doing, and I'll show a video on that once we wrap up to kind of highlight what we've seen if no one's ever been out there to see those bags getting caught up in the wind downtown. Another item potentially for review is obstruction of our cleaning crews along the parade route following the parade. So this has been something that's been growing over years past. We have parade goers who linger on the parade route following the conclusion of the parades to enjoy themselves, but it obstructs our cleaning crews. So we're there, we have heavy equipment, we have high pressure blowers, and people that need to rake and clear that neutral ground. When you have persons that are present there, it poses a safety issue for us. In some instances, obviously we're not trying to use those high pressure blowers that kick up a lot of dust when you have persons present, because it does make particulates airborne, which means that we potentially may have to rake more than we would like instead of using those blowers, which are incredibly helpful. And it decreases the efficiency and the speed at which we can clean. So we certainly want everybody to enjoy themselves at Mardi Gras, have a great time. When the sanitation crew was coming down that parade route, following the parade route, everyone should have vacated and gone either to their homes or their vehicles at that point. We're not immediately following the parade down the parade route. There is always a gap on most days. That gap, is significant, anywhere up to an hour or so. So there's plenty of time for people to get their things together and exit. But doing so will keep them safe and will keep our workers safe and allow us to efficiently move down that parade route. So we would ask potentially, looking at Section 3420 and if there's changes that can be made to that to ensure people promptly vacate the parade route. Last thing I wanted to do before I show the video on the bags is just give a special thank you to the American Red Cross of Louisiana. This year, the American Red Cross provided sandwiches to the cleanup crews on multiple days throughout the carnival season. This was, an extremely generous act that the American Red Cross did. You see here some pictures of them giving out. It went a long way with our workers. They appreciated it. Certainly, they're out there working hard, sometimes 18 to 20 hours a day. So to have that extra bit of food, that just means that's less money they're spending on the parade route to go and purchase food to keep them moving. So we are extremely grateful to the American Red Cross of Louisiana for reaching out and coordinating and providing us with those sandwiches for this year. So just wanted to make sure I made that thank you. As I mentioned before I wrap up, I'll just quickly show the video that I alluded to around bags again, so I think folks can just get a view of kind of what we're talking about here. So see here is a good example of that. This is, what happens with, this is what happens with bags downtown. I mean, this is what the wind does downtown. It will spiral, it will kick bags up, they will move all across the St. Charles Avenue into private property and down streets, and as you're trying to pick them up, you're fighting that wind as well, which is a challenge for workforce. So again, I think certainly, whatever efforts potentially can be looked at on crews to limit or reduce the number of plastic bags would just go a long way to keeping Mardi Gras a cleaner event and reduce that cleanup time for our crews. That's all for us.
Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, that looked like a scene from Bagnado, Sharknado. Matt, thank you for everything that you and your team do during Mardi Gras. I do want to talk about the people and people obstructing the cleanup efforts. Are you encountering also tarps, structures, ladders, all the things?
Absolutely. I think as the carnival season progresses and you, and you get into the second weekend, you see a significant increase in personal property left behind on the parade route, tarps, ladders, tents, and so on. It's almost its own enterprise now, a business where you have people that are paid to maintain these things. For us, certainly, it's a challenge. I mean, anybody who's been out there the second weekend, I mean, the neutral ground is quite consumed with those materials. So for us, our main objective is to clean, to get that debris gone. But if there was an ask to remove those items, that would be a whole nother undertaking because
Right.
it is quite significant and voluminous.
Yeah, that was going to be my question is, have you been asked or do you remove any of the items that you encounter, like the tarps, like the ladders, et cetera?
The only 2 days where the Department of Sanitation removes unattended items are the first Sunday, because we'll have a gap between when parades resume on Wednesday, and Mardi Gras Day. Otherwise, unattended items that are not clearly trash, we're not removing. And it would take, again, more people, more equipment to remove that significant increase in volume.
When you encounter the people who are still lingering after the parade, do you have any law enforcement with you so that your folks aren't tasked with asking them to move? Because I know people can get drunk and rowdy during Mardi Gras and feel very empowered and entitled, especially the Chads.
We have a limited amount of law enforcement that's with us. So generally, a Mardi Gras cleanup, the St. Charles route is broken up into 3 zones. So it's equally divided. You may have 2 to 3 officers with each zone. And that zone is cleaning. So Zone A would clean from, potentially Jefferson and Magazine to Louisiana and St. Charles. So a Lentil zone. We may have 5 blocks open that we're cleaning at one time. So clearly, there's a lot of area there.
I guess my question more directly is, would it be helpful for your teams to have law enforcement sort of escorting them to help get these people know that they have to move and they can't just linger?
Yeah, and we do. I don't want to diminish that we do have an NOPD with us, but I think a dedicated force that drove down the neutral ground and instructed people to vacate, maybe on the loudspeaker, would certainly be helpful.
So this year, it didn't seem like there was coordinated enforcement of the Mardi Gras rules. I know you said you don't really pick up the unattended ladders, the tarps, the ladders that are put out way before the parades, et cetera. Do you know what agency was tasked to do that?
I do not.
And we don't have Parks and Parkways here. We don't have NOPD here either to answer that. The point is, we need more.
Austin, why don't you come up for a second? I think you can answer some of your questions.
Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning, Austin.
Hey.
Who was tasked with enforcing the Mardi Gras rules this year? What agency?
My understanding is that Chief Goodley and OPSO was supporting, but that did not extend to all the routes as I understand it. So also we had NOPD 3rd District along the Endymion route. And I also assisted with that effort as well, mainly because we were trying to avoid overtime for some of our departments that had not done overtime projections in general. To the extent I can try to keep my departments off of overtime, that's what I'm trying to do. In that event, I went out there with Carlos and Terry from Safety and Permits, who were kind enough to support.
Did you actually remove any items, tarps, ladders, things that were put up too soon or left too late?
Yes, ma'am, and happy to share the pictures about a truck's worth or dualies worth of materials.
For over the course of the entire Mardi Gras?
That was one of the days. I did it twice, and the second day was more fruitful, let's say. I mean, of course, that's not our objective. We'd to try to take people's items, but the second day did yield more in terms of the quantity of items we removed.
Do you know what day that was? What parade day?
I can certainly get that for you if you just give me 1 second.
Okay, yeah, look, I live not far from the parade route. I can tell you on Muses Thursday, for example, people were setting up overnight. On the bigger parade days, people were setting up overnight. This is a consistent issue because RTA needs to run so that people can get to and from work, school, jobs, and they're not able to because they're being blocked by people who aren't necessarily respectful to our Mardi Gras traditions and not necessarily from here. I can tell you that I have these complaints about people being on the parade route, people blocking ladders, being in front of people. I mean, it just was the Wild West, and so I don't quite understand what enforcement was happening during the entire Mardi Gras season, especially during the bigger parades.
I completely agree, and I definitely think there's room for improvement. I think I don't want to take credit for this idea because it was actually Matt's idea, but do you want to talk a little bit about the private haulovers and OPSO?
I mean, I think what became clear this year was that city agencies were constrained. And so that if the city is serious about enforcing it, we may need to look for third parties, private support for the actual removal efforts, right? As long as they can have support from a law enforcement agency, and that doesn't necessarily have to be NOPD. I think anybody who's out on a parade route understands that, and you alluded to it, that people don't enjoy being told to do things that they don't want to do, and can become confrontational. And when you have folks that are out on that parade route on a daily basis, they may encounter those same persons on a different day, not with whatever police contingency was with them, and that interaction can go poorly.
Yeah, look, we certainly don't want to make Mardi Gras punitive, but at the same time, we have families, citizens, folks from New Orleans who can't see a parade, who can't get home, who can't get to school or work because there's stuff on the neutral ground that hasn't been picked up. So I think we need to look ahead to next year to figure out who specifically is going to play points. When we get complaints, who are we sending those to so that there can be a strike team that goes out to tell Bob from Chalmette to move his tent and his giant ladders? I mean, there just have to be things put into place that we as District B need to know who we can complain to, because much Mardi Gras rolls through District B, and we're getting all the complaints, and then we're sending them around the city to try to figure out who can address these, and we didn't really have a point person for that. The other thing that I want to bring up while you're here, Austin, are complaints about the barricades that are still sitting out along St. Charles Avenue. We've gotten probably 15 complaints about those barricades. They're still sitting out there. Do we have a timeline on when they will be picked up?
I meet with Steve Nelson tomorrow at 9 a.m., and I will talk to Shannon. And I believe Shannon's team deployed those barricades, if I'm not mistaken, so I'll get an update to you on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. Matt, I just wanted to publicly thank your hardworking employees for the yeoman's effort that they put in throughout Mardi Gras. The city just owes them a tremendous debt of gratitude, and I just wanted to put that on the record. So thank you.
Appreciate that. I'll be sure to share that with them as well.
Ditto.
A lot of ditto today. Before you guys go, a couple of things. First off, I do think we're going to have to clarify the law, because right now we say 4 hours before a parade route. And I can tell you in conversations with my office with OPSO, they interpret it as we go out exactly 4 hours before the route and do a sweep. The problem you have on the Endymion route, for example, is people are setting up on Wednesday for Endymion. And what I will say, and I'll be as candid as possible, Mardi Gras takes place in more places than New Orleans. But the behavior and the entitlement you see in this city, you do not see in other places. No one sets up for parades in Jefferson 3 days in advance because JPSO would not stand for it, and neither would Jefferson Parish. And the same residents from Jefferson Parish, St. Bernard, St. Tammany, who come here to enjoy Mardi Gras, they don't want ladders and trash in front of their houses, but they're happy to set up ladders and trash on our thoroughfares, and we're done with it. To your point, Matt, and I think this was during, maybe first term last mayor, there was one day where the mayor actually had a third party go down St. Charles and claw up all of the chairs, all of the ladders, and the behavior changed almost immediately when there was a sense of enforcement. But to your point, that only happened because a third party was hired to do it, because your people can't be everywhere. I mean, if they had to deal with the pre-parade cleanup and the post-parade cleanup, the overtime itself is an issue, but to your point with the parade starting earlier, you cannot have people working 16-hour days. So to your point, I want to say that before Mardi Gras started, I made the comment publicly that enforcement would not be what it could be because of constraints with our budget. And there were some people in the media who said, no, the sheriff says they're going to do enforcement. We all knew that was never going to work, because a sheriff telling people 4 hours before a parade to move their stuff doesn't even put a dent in the problems that y'all are facing. I do hope that as we dig ourselves out of this financial quagmire, we do have the wherewithal to have the funding available to have third party support you, Matt, because that's what it's going to take to do enforcement. I mean, we will have to pay a little bit of overtime for NOPD or some other party to go out there with them, but once people see enforcement's going to happen, then that may change their behavior. The other thing I want to highlight, Matt, and you could talk about this, people who complain about our enforcement do not realize that a large amount of those tarps and those ladders don't go home with people. They stay for your people to clean up, right?
Yes.
We speak to that for a second. How much of the tons of trash are leftover tents, tarps, ladders, debris furniture, or things that start Mardi Gras very pretty but end up being trash we have to dispose?
I mean, on Mardi Gras Day, which is that primary day where things become disposable, they're an investment. People buy them for the pure intent of using them in their Mardi Gras, but they don't leave with it. You're right. So it's left there, and Mardi Gras Day is a major undertaking. So we start cleaning up behind Zulu 8 a.m. on Mardi Gras Day. We don't finish at Broad in Orleans until 1 a.m. It's a full day of cleaning uptown and downtown, because everything that people have bought, tarps, ladders, tents, coolers, grills, are left because they're disposable things that were only intended to last that 2 weeks of Mardi Gras.
Right. So, I mean, I know that sometimes we get the Chads who call us up and go, you're impinging upon my right to party. And there's this assumption the public has that when someone puts that nice chair out of that ladder, they're going to gleefully pick it up and bring it home. But the reality is they get their use out of it, and then it becomes a tremendous amount of debris that our workers have to deal with because these people had no intention of ever picking this stuff up. And it's just, it goes beyond just being unfair, because in a lot of ways this is tremendously unfair to the people in the sanitation department. It goes towards a sense of abject entitlement that our entire city exists to serve other people's whims. And like I said, I mean, the law is the law. We need to give you more tools to enforce the law. We're going to look at our existing municipal offenses, our traffic offenses, to be able to give the NOPD more wherewithal to actually write tickets to people on the spot. Because the reality is that's kind of where we're at this point. It's not a point of, it's not realistic for you, Matt, ever to be in a position between the parades, the last weekend of Mardi Gras, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to be able to go in between and have a third party pick up those tarps and those ladders, because the parades are pretty much on top of each other. I mean, that Sunday before Orpheus is about the only time you can actually clean up for that whole weekend. So we are going to get more aggressive. We're going to figure out ways to enforce the law in ways that don't overtax sanitation. Well, we appreciate all your hard work and look forward to working with you as well. All right, thank you guys. Next up, we have the highlight of the meeting, I guess, which will be the discussion of incidents and concerns regarding Mardi Gras Carnival crews, including the crews of Carrollton, Toth, Tux, Ferret, Ocean, and Zulu was supposed to be on that list, but they were not, so I'll add them to the list verbally. Why don't we just go in order? Carrollton, why don't you guys come up? Come up to the table up front. Representative of Carrollton. All right. And just for the record, we have had some meetings with some of the crews beforehand. So we are aware of some of what'll be disclosed today. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Councilman. Thank you, all the councilmen. My name is Wayne Lee. I've been the captain of the crew of Carrollton for over 30 years. Our president, Mr. Youngblood, has been president for over 25 years. So you can see there's a consistent leadership in the crew. It doesn't change. I want the council to know that although we are a parade, we're not just a parade. We do many, many things during the year. We do a lot of social work that we work with different organizations. We actually started a fundraiser for a Crew of Alex, which is NF1. We did a $10,000 donation to the Children's Hospital. We do ARC of New Orleans does our throws, our boots for us every year. They decorate the boots that are thrown. And we did children's TV with WYES, just to name a few from this past year. I also want you to know that in all my years as captain, this is the first time I've been called before the council. Yes, we did have some issues in our parade, and we have addressed those issues. We take them very seriously. As soon as the parade was over, we talked with the police department. We called Mr. Morell's office and set up a meeting with him. We weren't walking away from any of these issues. We addressed them all independently, and all have been handled. So we look forward to staying as a parading organization and moving forward for the next year.
Thank you. I want to highlight a couple of things that I think are going to lead some changes going forward. So one of the challenges Carrollton had when we had our conversations was there was no police report generated from the incident, correct?
That is correct.
And there was no names. There was no presentation of any victims who could be questioned. And there was no video, correct?
That is correct.
So Carrollton is still, to the best of their ability, investigating the incident. But one of the things that we are going to change going forward is working with NOPD to change policy of when an incident happens. When an incident occurs, because one of the first things Carrollton did when this occurred was ask for all of that information. And as I recall, one of the things you guys told NOPD at the time was, if somebody was doing that, you should arrest them.
Absolutely.
So we are going to have to substantially change NOPD policy so that there is a record of what occurred so that the parties who did the work can be held accountable and that there can be an investigation for which crews could actually handle what happened. I mean, if nothing else, I think that what this has shown is that when you're dealing with enforcing the rules, there has to be a chain of evidence in order for us to do it. And because these rules and enforcement are new, there was a lack of communication with NOPD in maintaining that chain. So I appreciate the fact y'all reached out to us. I appreciate the fact that you've taken this very seriously. And I am a big proponent of dealing with things prospectively. So we're going to change some of the policies going forward so that when something like this happens, both the city and the parade are held accountable so that we can figure out who did what so we can get to the bottom of it.
We appreciate that.
All right.
We don't want those kind of riders in our parade.
Right. So just so everyone knows, we're going to have all the crews come up first, and then we have a host of comments. We're going to take those comments up at the end. So thank you very much, crew of Carrollton. Next up, we'll have the crew of Toth.
Good morning. My name is Pendleton Larson. I've been captain of crew of Toth for 37 years, and along with me is Raven Carreras, who's been on the board of directors, is now president, has been president for 10 years. Our parade consists of 40 floats and 2,400 members. We have grown substantially from 175 to 2,400. We were in constant contact with our parade marshal, which we have 3 parade marshal cars or 3 parade marshal vehicles in the parade, and one being Paul Lehman, who's a parade marshal for quite a few parades. I was in constant contact with him. I did not find out about the incident on float 32 until after the parade was over. The float 32 had 48 riders on it. The riders, they have each float has a lieutenant and 2 sub-lieutenants. The sub-lieutenants were not made, they were asked, they were questioned, well, I questioned them, and some of my officers questioned each one of the riders on the float, and they were told, we were told that the NOPD stopped the float. They said they were throwing aggressively, and they were all removed from the float. I questioned a few, my officers questioned a few, and they all said the same thing. All the NOPD did was say they were throwing hard, and they took them off the float. That's the extent of it. I spoke with Captain Michoud after the parade, and he said he had some witnesses and some film, but we have yet to see anything. I've been out the country for the last few weeks, so since Mardi Gras, I haven't been able to contact with him again. But I have not received any phone calls or any emails to that effect. But, you know, anyone that has ridden a parade knows that people throw things, and sometimes people are looking and they turn their head. I myself have hit babies in the face, not intentionally, but sometimes the parents turn away. They're looking at their cell phones, et cetera, et cetera. But we're working with our bead supplier for a way to eliminate some of the heavy throws, because I feel that some of these things are getting really heavy, and it's become a problem. So we're working with them to see if they can individually bag these things so that we have a much lighter load as far as throwing the beads. Some of the beads are just too heavy, and we're going to eliminate some of the beads from our floats. Anything above a 12 millimeter will be eliminated. That's even, the Major League Baseball has even put up nets on both sides of first base and third base after 100 years because people are not paying attention. They're not aware of what's going on, and they're looking at, mostly it's because of cell phones. They're looking at cell phones. And we will do whatever we have to do as far as with the city, we'll work with the city and the police department to make sure this doesn't happen again. But as far as Float 32, I was not made aware of this until after the Mardi Gras parade, the parade itself.
Well, like I said previously, I did not have a meeting with you guys before this meeting today. So I have to ask the questions that need to be asked. So first off, have you been in communication with NOPD to obtain those videos or any reports or anything else?
I asked Captain Michoud, and he said he would get with me, but I have not heard anything yet. No.
Okay. Has any disciplinary action been taken with Float 32?
It will be.
Will be?
Yes.
Once you have the information
Yes,
that
sir.
you need?
Yes.
I want to ask a very specific question, and it's going to seem this is not related to Float 32, it's related to throws. So as you know, the rules were changed in an effort, just so the public knows. A lot of people complain about throws and don't like certain types of throws. The reality is that, and the crews know this, we cannot restrict what types of throws are thrown because of First Amendment rights. We cannot tell crews, you can't throw this thing or you can't throw that thing. The way we address it is we have an ordinance which says all throws are to be pre-approved by crews, correct?
Yes, sir.
My question today is, I received numerous complaints about political throws being thrown from the crew of Toth. And I'm wondering, because I know when I met with crew of Carrollton, they gave me I think Julia may have it, they gave me like a 3-page contract everyone has to sign saying that they know all the rules of Mardi Gras, and that is one of the rules. Have you heard of any complaints about political throws being thrown?
No, sir. No, not a word. But we do the same thing. We have a list of bylaws and rules and regulations.
This is a throw that one of the kids from my kid's school got thrown to them.
Okay.
Not only is it offensive because this meme is like 5 years old, so no one even gives a crap about Let's Go Brandon anymore, but this is the stuff still being thrown by Toth. There has to be a mechanism. The whole reason why crews have lieutenants on the floats is their job is to make sure people are not breaking the rules, right?
Yes.
There has to be a more aggressive effort by your lieutenants to police throws. We all know very few crews. I point that one in particular, Penny, because I don't know, some crews throw out shirts. I'm not aware of throwing Toth brand t-shirts.
We throw only Toth brand t-shirts that have a seal on it that says approved Crew of Toth item.
There has to be a greater effort by you to
Yes, sir.
educate your riders, because when they throw stuff like this, every single person that receives it stops thinking about the Crew of Toth starts by Children's Hospital.
Yes.
Everyone who loves Toth loves the fact that you guys focus on kids. One of those throws ruins Mardi Gras for a child. There has to be a greater effort, not just to educate your riders, but there has to be an effort by all crews that when riders do bad behavior, you need to call them out and kick them out. Because it undermines, well, I know, but like I said, beyond the fact it's a meme that's like super old and no one even paid attention to anymore, it's just somebody felt comfortable pushing their own political messaging on a child and a family that sent me that shirt because they were so offended by it. And a lot of us value the mission of Toth. You guys should be as angry as I am that somebody ruined Mardi Gras and Toth for a family. And I need all the crews to be much more on the ball. Now these lieutenants need to be watching what's going on like a hawk, because had your lieutenant been watching, they would have known that went out. And that's just one. I don't know how many this guy threw that day. Just one family reached out to me and said, we want to give you this because it really ruined their experience, because they're big fans of Toth. So, like I said, we're going to have a conversation with NOPD. We're going to change the policy in NOPD, because I will acknowledge first and foremost, you can't be expected after the fact to deal with something without the evidence being presented to you. Because I can promise you, we've all been from grade school to college, everyone does the finger pointing in a circle, or they all say nothing. And you can't enforce the rules without evidence. We are going to do a better job of giving that evidence to you.
Yes, sir, we will.
All right, thank you, Penn.
And I promise you that anyone that does anything, we've already told Captain Mishu, if someone in our parade does something, arrest them.
I think that is you see, that's the consistent message. I think that NOPD needs to err on the side of setting examples and not on the side of trying to get the parade going along. And I will say also, there needs to be an effort before we clear floats. If we know who the bad actors are, we should be taking out the bad actors with specificity. Because when you clear a whole float and we don't identify who the people are who are doing the bad act, it actually makes it harder to prosecute and deal with them afterwards.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, Tux.
Good morning.
All right, floor is yours.
Good morning. My name's Mark Frischert. I'm on the board of directors of the Crew of Tux, and I was tasked with primarily investigating the incident that happened during our parade where we had a rider throwing offensive throws to children in our, in the community. And to piggyback on something you just stated, Councilman, our goal as a parade is to put on a show for everyone to enjoy, and secondarily to use some satire to poke fun at mostly the city of New Orleans, sometimes the government, but our number one goal is for people who come to see the Crew of Tux to enjoy our parade. And so when we have a rider engage in conduct that objectively is at least racially insensitive and at worst overtly, racist, it harms our organization, it harms us, and it's especially important, and I've met with some of you, not only this country, but Mardi Gras has a history of racism, okay, overt racism, and not just 5 not just 50, 60, 100 years ago, in the 1990s. Parades said, we're not parading anymore because the city council passed a law requiring integration. And it's something we at the Crew of Talks are particularly harmed by because we are not that organization. We have never been an exclusionary organization. We were started from our inception in 1969 to the present. We not only allow, we invite people of all backgrounds, men, women, black, white, gay, straight. It has been, our diversity has been our strength. And so when we have an incident like this involving two of our riders, it harms the people, obviously, who were offended by the throw, but it also harms us, harms the city, and for that, we are greatly sorry. We have performed, as to kind of, I guess, preempt some of your questions, we performed an investigation of this incident, and everything I say now is part of our investigation. I'm not trying to justify or defend anyone's conduct, or I'm just trying to present the facts to the council. We were able to gather lots of photos and videos from both. We have an area where our parade is officially videoed and photographed by someone associated with the crew. We also scoured social media, and as a result of that gathering, and we issued a statement during Mardi Gras to this effect, our board met and we unanimously decided to permanently ban two of the riders that were on float 22. We did that pursuant to the authority this council has indirectly given parades by stating that anything that's not a sanctioned throw by the Crew of Talks, we have the authority to control what is thrown from our parades. Now, beyond that, we've gone through the process of reviewing what can we do to prevent things like this in the future. And it's especially difficult, and in our case, it may involve more monitoring, more education by our captains, because in this case, unlike a Go Brandon shirt, which is directly political, offensive, we had dolls and beads, which separated would have passed while neither the beads nor the dolls were, throws that were purchased through the Crew of Talks. They're beads, and that if we would separate it, we would have allowed riders to throw from our float. And so what we need when we now reviewing how to prevent this from happening in the future, we need people who are more attuned to, you can't get on a float and do things that objectively people will view as offensive, no matter what your intent is. And I say no matter what your intent, because as part of our investigation, people send us photos of him dangling white dolls, him dangling black dolls, him hanging white dolls off the side of the float, him hanging black dolls off the side of the float. And this wasn't part of our consideration in making the decision that we made to ban these riders. I can't get in someone's heart. What I can do is say that type of throw is offensive and has no place in our parade, and that's the decision we made. Furthermore, there was some additional discussion or feedback to us regarding our float to begin with, and I can report to the council on that. Our float was the Sewage and Water Board float. It was supposed to be cracked pipe. We've met with the float builder, Kern. It wasn't painted that way. As some of you may know, Mardi Gras organizations, especially ours, and I can't speak for others, were put on by solely volunteers. And there's really one primary float builder, float designer in the city. A lot of those floats, the paint's still wet when they're going down the float. And so while I can't defend, I can say our goal was to be critical of the Sewage and Water Board's failing piping system. And that was our sole goal. And if you look at the design of the float and what we published in the paper, that's what it was supposed to say. We've taken actions, and we're continuing to review our policies to prevent something like this from ever happening again. And obviously, I'm here to answer any questions anyone has.
Councilman Breeze.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good morning. I'll begin by saying, you know, for me, as a native of this city, I have great memories in my heart of being a child. I would look forward to going to Mardi Gras every year. I have to admit that Mardi Gras this year was heavy for me. It was heavy for my family. It was heavy for a lot of people. And it's getting a little bit out of control at this point. I know we're using words like incident, and I notice all the crews are not really speaking with specificity, so let's get a little specific. The incident that you're talking about was what exactly?
Oh, we had a rider who took a Mardi Gras bead, wrapped it around the neck of dolls, in this case, an African-American doll, and were handing them to children, in this case, in the particular case that was brought to our attention, the bead was handed to an African-American child, and it was considered very offensive, and the parents of that child had to have a conversation with their child that they probably weren't wanting to have in that moment about that history and about why it was offensive. And so, yeah, that's the particular incident that we're talking about.
Okay, you used the term, you used two terms, and I appreciate it. You used the term racially insensitive, and then you used the term racist, right? Two totally different things. So I want to ask all three of you. In this situation, do you feel that this incident was racist?
I don't know. And the reason why I don't know is I don't know this rider's heart. I mean, I think objectively it could be viewed as racist. I think, and when I say that, we have 2,700 riders. This is not one of the riders. Like many Mardi Gras organizations, we've grown drastically, and we no longer, 20 years ago, I had at least maybe a 1 or 2 degree of separation from a lot of people that rode in our parade. I don't know this rider, and so it's hard for me to speak to his intent. What I can say is I view it as objectively racist imagery to have a African-American doll hanging from a bead by the neck.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking. I'm not asking you to get in the rider's head. I'm asking from your perspective and your perspective and your perspective, do you feel this was a racist act?
Yes, I think objectively it was, and that's what we put in our, I drafted the original, we found this out at around 8:30 Saturday night. Our parade rolled at noon on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I put out a statement, within minutes, and that's how we described it, exactly how you're saying.
Okay.
I'm Lloyd Frischurz. I am the captain of Tux. I started Tux along with Bob Reichert, the father of the gentleman to my left. 58 years ago, I've been captain. It's hard for me to see it as racist because I don't have anything like that in my heart. And for 58 years, we've never presented anything like that. So I don't know the definition. I do, and the action we took didn't have to come to that determination. It was racially insensitive. It was for somebody to say, well, I can do it, because I had a white doll doing it and not a black. They had an article in the paper by some of the well-known religious leaders, and he said, if you don't understand that because you had it with a white and a black, that's okay. They said, come talk to us and we'll explain it to you. And I see that, and that's how I see it. Does racism cause somebody to be motivated to do something that's racially insensitive? I don't know. I do know that our investigation showed that these people are not normally what you would call that type of racist person, but I can't tell. It is clearly something that It's insensitive, racially insensitive. We won't tolerate that. Haven't tolerated it in 58 years, and we're not going to tolerate it in the future. And we have come together where we can scrutinize in the action of the parade. And that's, in other words, like Mark said, you take the bead and you take the doll, there's nothing wrong with it.
All right.
We didn't think we got to go further than that to monitor throughout the parade.
All right, thank you.
But I guess we do.
Yeah, thank you. Robert Reichert, son of Tuck's founder, Bobby Reichert. Pleasure to be here and address these things. And I agree with everything Mark and Lloyd had said. As a board, we've gone through this countless days and hours. Very troubling and very painful, but also very important to go over it. One thing that
I just want to go back to my very direct question. Do you feel this was a racist act?
as a whole, objectively, we don't know. I don't think it was done on purpose. What I want to say, though, truthfully, is that appearance-wise, yes, it's racist. However, one thing that's important is that what that little girl felt was racism. And it's an unfortunate thing that they had to have that conversation. So whether or not you ask our opinions of this or not, it's that they had to have that conversation.
Well, I have to ask your opinion. I'm gonna chime in here, and I'm trying to be calm. And Mr. President, I'm probably going to excuse myself in a minute, so that I can maintain my temperament. Let me just say a couple things. It's a shame that in 2026, we're still having to have certain conversations. And you talked about maybe the crew needing to do education. The frightening part for me is that I don't think, given some of the responses today, that the crew is even equipped to properly do education on this issue. You know, none of us can control the family we're born into, the color of our skin, but we can't ignore the deep, dark past of this great country we call America. I can't ignore my 95-year-old grandmother who served at a counter at Woolworth, a counter that she couldn't even eat at. I can't ignore the fact that her grandparents were not born free in this great country that we call America. And I can't ignore the fact that when I see beads tied around the necks of a black female doll, it reminds me of the people that was lynched in this country. There was not a damn thing good about that incident. Not a damn thing. And we have to acknowledge that. And we can't properly educate people if we're not going to acknowledge it. The act was racist, plain and simple. And it has no place in Mardi Gras, and it has no place in our city, and it's a horrific reflection of everybody. My family didn't have a 400-year head start, and I don't wear that on my sleeves. But we've all got to take time, take a deep breath, and understand history, and understand why that was an act of racism. And then and only then can we properly educate our crew and make sure that this doesn't happen again. So if you want to come spend some time with me and have some direct heart-to-heart conversations where you can get to know me and I can get to know you, because I'm not accusing any of you at this table of being racist. Let me be clear. But the act was racist. Period. Point blank. End of discussion. And we can't justify it in any shape, form, or fashion. So my invitation remains open. Anytime you want to take me up on it, I look forward to it. With that, thank you, Mr. President.
We look forward to meeting with you.
Councilman Barris.
Yeah, look, I'm sitting up here shaking my head at things like don't know the definition of racism. It seemed to be racist. It's unfortunate that they had to have that conversation with their child when you all should have had a conversation with your crew and the people who sub, because my understanding is these were two subs, correct? Or were they crew members?
Well, we don't have, there were riders in our parade. we don't have a separate definition of crew member and rider. If you sign up for our parade, you're a rider.
Either way, your riders need to understand what they can and cannot throw. And as the only black woman sitting up here, and as one of two women sitting up here, the action was not only racist, it was sexist, because they were stringing up white dolls as well. Black and white female dolls. So your crew and your riders need to be educated about what they can and cannot throw, what is sexist and what is racist, which sitting here we all know both sexist and racist were those actions.
Yes, that's.
The riders had to actively go purchase Barbie dolls, unwrap them, string them up, and then throw them to people. Correct?
Yes.
Do you know how many Barbie dolls they had with them?
Our investigation revealed they had 30 white dolls and 30 African American dolls. At least that's what we were told.
And none of the captains, none of the lieutenants on that particular float asked these people why they had Barbie dolls and what they were doing with them?
They did not. I don't think they saw them before the parade started.
Where were these two riders located on the float?
They were on the upper deck, mid-float.
Mid-float. So that means the two riders who were stringing up these dolls were punished, but not the people on either side of them who, look, I ride, I know, you see what other people are doing, and neither of the people next to them said anything to either the people who were throwing these racist and sexist dolls or to the lieutenant.
That's my understanding.
What does your board composition look like?
Our board composition is made up of, it rotates every couple of years. Right now, there are 3 women and 5 men.
Are any of those men or women African American?
They are not.
That's a problem, right? And this is a problem with many of the crews that are out here doing these things. You literally don't know if this is racist or sexist. That's because your board members have no idea. It's not in their heart to know whether or not this is racist or sexist. It objectively is. As Councilmember Hughes, do not interrupt me.
I'm sorry.
As Councilmember Hughes said, objectively racist, and I say objectively sexist. And the fact that your board members could not clock this before it happened is a problem. You need, and I say this to all the crews, you need to make sure that you have board members who look like New Orleans, so that they can say, this is objectively racist, this is objectively sexist. Now, I know Councilmember Morrell is talking about a registry, making sure that these two riders can't get on other crews and do the same thing, and I support that because these two people, and you can probably interview them to ask what's in their hearts, but either way, stringing up female dolls and tossing them to the crowd, objectively racist, objectively sexist. They do not need to be on any other float ever for Mardi Gras in the city of New Orleans.
You done, Leslie? She's done multiple different ways she's done. To the point that Councilman Harris said, so one thing that's come out of this, and I've really struggled with this because of the legal ramifications. We are working on the possibility of putting together a registry of band riders. Now, the challenge is, in this instance, is that it is not legally permissible to make laws retroactive. And the problem we have with this particular incident is because the registry will exist after the behavior occurred, it is problematic to deal with this incident retroactively. But what this has taught me is that the existing penalties for bad behavior are not enough. Whether you're lynching dolls, whether you're throwing beads at different people based upon their political views or the color of their skin, riders need to know, and this is part of the challenge we have, riders ride in multiple parades. For those of you who don't ride, I don't really ride, but many riders ride in 3, 4, 5 parades. And so the way things stand, if you ban someone from one parade, that does not mean they're banned from the other parades. So going forward, what we're working on and we're navigating the legal ramifications of it to make sure we can do it in a legal manner is that going forward, when a rider is banned from a crew for violating city ordinances, that rider goes into a registry saying they were banned from crew X. Now what that does is crew Y, Z, A, and B can still have them, but at that point the liability is on that crew that if you have someone that committed a bad behavior and you publicly know who they are, do you take that risk? And I will tell you, and these crews are here to tell you as well, they're not. Because once you've done something that resulted in a ban, the liability that goes on that crew, once that bad behavior is known, no one wants to take that. So we are working on this registry language. It is going to be a challenge, but it's something that is necessary because riders need to know that just because you got into the cups and had a bad behavior, there's no way to wave a wand for everyone to forget it. And the sanctity of Mardi Gras that is taxpayer funded and taxpayer supported is paramount. So we as a city, Mardi Gras will continue to evolve as this city goes forward to address the bad behavior of people on the float and off the float. And to that angle, you also know you had a confetti cannon situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to address that really quickly?
Yes, one of the elements, I mean, obviously minor compared to the issues that we have already discussed, but one of the elements in our parade was fired off a Mylon confetti cannon, which is banned by the council for good reason, because if it can cause a power issue. And we understand, it wasn't a direct element, but we take responsibility for it.
Okay, so there'll be a fine incoming for that, as you know.
We know. And we really educate our people about it, our members, our riders. This was actually someone with Frenchie who rides in the parade and who paints throughout the parade. And that was the element. And apparently he didn't get the education that our members got. That's our fault. We've corrected that.
Okay. I know there'll be a slew of public comment on this, but that's all I have for you guys right now. Next up, we have, let's see, Ferret? Yeah, Ferret's up. Before you get started, Bobby, I do want to publicly state Ferret was really on top of this. When the council brought all this to their attention, they responded very, very quickly in addressing our concerns and trying to rectify the problem and trying to figure out a way forward. So I just want to make sure, because out of all the crews, when we noticed a problem, you guys immediately reached out to us, and I want to commend you for that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bobby.
First and foremost, I just want to thank you, Mr. President, the council, for giving us an opportunity to speak today. Let me just address the confetti cannon incident. We take full responsibility for that. I can sit here and tell you reasons why it happened, but this isn't a moment for excuses. It's a moment for accountability. And we take full accountability for that happening. Sometimes no matter how many times we tell people not to do things, somehow they still manage to sneak their way into the parade. Immediately upon realizing this, we began to discuss additional measures that we can take to prevent this from happening in the future. There are several new measures that we will be taking this year to continue to work towards making sure that nothing even ends up on a float that could potentially be a violation. So that's what we're doing going forward, and we understand fines will be levied, and we will pay those immediately.
Okay, and that also, I guess, deals with the issue with the koozies as well, right?
Yes, sir. And so as far as the koozies go, let me just say this, and I can say this with complete honesty. Those koozies were not created by the crew of Ferret. They were not created for the crew of Ferret to throw. Those koozies were created as a giveaway that were handed out during our load-in process. It is common for people to hand out free items during that process. Somehow a box of them managed to make it on a float, and I think the rest is history. let me say this, Councilman Morell. I agree with you completely in your sentiment about this. Absolutely, completely, 100%. Besides issues involving public safety, there are no more important rules in Mardi Gras than the rules that protect our cultures and tradition and prevent it from being corporate. Mardi Gras must never become corporate. It would ruin it. And I agree with you completely. One issue that occurred this year that I did know about, we created some soaps, some boxes of soaps that we had a small company in New Orleans create. And their name was on the side of those boxes. And while we thought it might be borderline, we took the measure of taking 6,000 stickers the week of the parade to put over the name of that company to ensure that we didn't even come close to violating this ordinance. So I want this council to know that we take this absolutely seriously and would never do anything that would be even construed as commercial. We made a mistake, and as you said, we took immediate accountability for it. We swiftly took action, and we have now put new procedures in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again. This year alone, not this year alone, within the last 2 years, we have eliminated over 1 million plastic beads from this delicate ecosystem by banning the throwing of plastic beads completely in our parade. With the help of Councilmember Harris's office, we were able to clean out catch basins all the way from Tipitina's to Callio. We spent over $1 million putting on our parade and after party this year. 80% of that was spent on local businesses located right here in the city. I'm not saying this because we're doing this for accolades or attention. We do these things because New Orleans deserves it. And we believe in this city. And we hope that this council and this body can continue to believe in us. So thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Ferret? All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Ocean, this is real simple. Come on up, Jess. You come there, come to the table. Ocean fired off some confetti cannons, and they know they're going to be fined for the confetti cannons. Do you want to say anything briefly on your confetti cannons?
No, I was mortified, just like you, when I saw the video. I could just apologize and say that we are going to make steps and put steps in place to make sure that doesn't happen this year.
Okay,
And we
thank you.
apologize.
Confetti cans are at least of our concerns. All right. That being said, we'll now go to public comment. All right. Rain Hancock? Oh, sorry, Zulu. I'm sorry. Come on up, Zulu. Almost forgot y'all. So as we know, the Zulu incident was there was a bottle thrown from a float, or accidentally thrown from a float, as I understand it, that struck a child. Do y'all want to address that?
Good morning, Darren Meyer, Director of Public Relations for the Zulu Association Pleasure Club. We're here at your request to address the alleged bottle incident in our parade with float, I believe 26, the U.S. Zulu float. I have here the President of Zulu, Oscar J. Rainey, and we also have two members of our safety committee who are leading the investigation into that incident.
Thank you, Brother Meyer. Good morning, Council, and first, thank you all for affording us the opportunity, as we know that this is an extremely serious matter. And as I've been the Zulu president the last 9 months, we hit the ground running and trying to ensure that we protect and maintain safety, integrity, and unity across the city of New Orleans. And as some of you know, those of you that don't know, we host an election for our characters, which kicks off our Mardi Gras season the last Sunday in May. So beginning in the last Sunday in May, once those characters and existing float captains that there's very little turnover, we begin to meet with those to discuss the rules and the regs of the Zulu Association Pleasure Club as it relates to the Mardi Gras parade, as it relates to do's and don'ts on floats, what you throw, where you throw, and what you don't throw Example, we hand Zulu coconuts, those that ride on the first level. On the second level, coconuts are extremely prohibited. But we also follow the ordinance of the city of New Orleans because we know it's a privilege for Zulu to parade on Mardi Gras Day, being one of the most demanded, attended parades in the city. And as we do that, it's important that we ensure that safety is our first priority in what we do for Mardi Gras. So when we got the information as it relates to the U.S. Zulu Float 26, we definitely was extremely alarmed of the allegement of a minor being hit on Mardi Gras Day. And obviously, after 2 weeks, 3 weeks of preparing for Mardi Gras, at that point, I left town. I left town on Wednesday morning. However, I'm grateful and publicly want to thank these gentlemen, the public safety piece as well as the PR piece, for taking the lead as it relates to the allegement of the individual being hit. But make no bones about it, anyone that's caught not following the rules as well as the regulations and the ordinance of the city of New Orleans will be indefinitely suspended from participating in any Zulu Mardi Gras activities. So what we're doing, we're going back to stand up to put some more stringent bar rails around what we're doing as it relates to Mardi Gras, because at the end, as I mentioned, it's a privilege. And when these sorts of things happen, they come with a cost, but not only the cost, the safety of an individual, of a human being, and we're here to protect as we contribute and do the things that we do in the community 365 days a year. And with that being said, I want to punt to Brother Joe Bilal so that he can give some additional information.
Yes, my name is Joe Bilal. I am the Safety Committee Chair for the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club, and I have with me my co-chair, Mr. Mark Delpit. So basically, once we found out about the incident, which was the night of the parade or the next day, we basically started our investigation. Right now, the investigation is still ongoing because we're waiting for our final piece, which is the New Orleans Police Department police report. It was just completed, I think, last week. It's going through the approval process. I've put in my request to receive a copy of that because in my understanding, with that report is some video footage and things of that nature from the local businesses around the area where the incident supposedly occurred. So once we get that, we'll be able to complete our investigation. But one thing I did want to let the council know, within this incident of supposedly the child getting hit, one of our riders actually got hit on that same float that had to go to the hospital after that incident. So that's one of the things that the public doesn't know, but I'm letting the council know right now. So once we do finish our investigation, we'll be able to have all the answers that we can to this alleged incident that occurred. Mark, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to mimic. We're aggressively pursuing this investigation internally with Zulu, but our hands are tied because we're waiting on NOPD. We don't have the liberty to go out and interview people while this investigation is going on with NOPD. So once that's concluded, we'll have a better understanding of what happened and have a better answer for you guys and the president.
I do want to put one other thing on the record. I know this is something, it seems frivolous, but I have gotten complaints about televisions, air fryers being handed off floats. And I say that because the rules also exclude those things as well, because unless Zulu pre-approved every air fryer and fridge or getting a float, I know that they're a great novelty, and I know even when I was a kid, they hung that kind of stuff out, but it's important as a council that we say this is not allowed, because you could have someone well-intentioned trying to hand an air fryer or a TV off the side of a float, trip, fall, and they hit somebody. And the liability, I know as an attorney, I know you have a lot of attorneys in Zulu, the liability of you hand out something that's not legally prohibited and it injures someone, that is not worth the risk. And I know NomTalk does it too, and I'm going to talk to them separately because we got video of that much later in the situation. But though these things are very funny and they're novelty and it's kind of like the joke of Mardi Gras Day, the fact that they have a risk of injury means we have to take them seriously. So just as you're educating your riders, because I mean, as I said previously, I remember when you could get hit in the head with a coconut. That was like a rite of passage. And I got a really big old head, so I got hit a lot of times in the head with a coconut. And Zulu made a very difficult decision in stopping the throwing of coconuts because though it was a Mardi Gras tradition, it wasn't worth the risk. And I want to say that publicly because when Zulu did that, that was one of the first crews that took accountability for something that was a tradition to make it safer. And as y'all led in that regard, I need y'all to lead and say, listen, guys, if you want to do a giveaway of TVs, do it before or after the parade. Don't do it in the parade because it's just one of those things where it's not worth the risk. So I appreciate y'all being here today. I look forward to the outcome of your investigation. I think a common thread we're seeing is a lot of the crews are waiting for the NOPD reports to figure out what to do because you are waiting for them to complete their investigations to complete yours. So thank you for coming here today. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you for having us.
All right, public comment. First up, we have Ryan Hancock, or Ryan Hancock, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Ryan Hancock. All right. Next up, we have Valerie Jefferson. Valerie Jefferson, come on down, Miss Jefferson.
Okay, let me get my house together. Good morning, City Councilman. I'm here representing the NAACP. The president is Dr. Ronald Coleman. He asked me to come down because notice that on your agenda you have a discussion about this. And we want everybody to know that the NAACP is at the table discussing this because this is uncalled for. That justice shall be heard, justice and righteousness shall be done. And we want you all to know that we support the city councilman, we support the mayor because you all stood up and showed up for us. What was done was uncalled for. My heart is so sad, so very sad, because they were publicly done. My mom said, when it's heard or when it's done, you need to nip it in the bud. So in behalf of the NAACP, I had a whole speech right here, but when I got the mic, that image literally came to my mind right now. A black doll hanging from a crew or from a float known publicly. A female black doll. I am a black female hanging. Thank you for standing up for us. Thank you for speaking up for us. I am a female, a proud black female. I represent the NAACP in New Orleans, and we stand with you. Thank you.
Chris Williams, followed by, I think this is Aiden G. Hagerson.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Chris Williams. I represent Louisiana Grassroots United, ACORN. I come here today because, as we know, Mardi Gras has always been a racist event. My grandfather was on Canal Street when he was told that Mardi Gras was not for him. Just 2 years ago, I was uptown north of Jackson Avenue between Napoleon and Jackson, and where all of the ladders and everything is, I was told this isn't the part of town that I should be in, that I should be down the street, down by Jackson. So we've had this problem, right? The crews, specific to this issue, the crews are not selecting who their riders are. They are taking people in and just taking the money, and whoever wants to go can go ride. And there's been a history here of racism, and now we've reached, with the current government that we have, a insurgence of racism throughout the country. We need to hold these crews accountable. We are proposing that you all do a $5,000 fine for some of these groups for their first infraction, and after their third infraction, that they refuse to have a permit to be allowed to parade. You all control who parades in the city. So you all have the responsibility to make sure that these citizens are safe and that these parades are not being racist towards our people. It has come to our conclusion that a lot of these parades continue to be racist, and we need to hold them accountable.
Is that correct? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That's all right. The name's Alden Hagedorn, Councilman. Thank you. I submitted a couple of emails right after Mardi Gras regarding an incident that happened in front of my condominium at 3915 St. Charles Avenue, and I was encouraged by council to come and address it today. First of all, I'm very familiar with Mardi Gras. I've been a member of Crew of Toth since 1978. Last time I was in the council chambers was to get a permit for Ancient Druids. I was one of the original founders of that crew, so I'm very familiar with Mardi Gras. I'm more familiar with the city of New Orleans. I've been a lifelong resident of Uptown for 71 years. Every year we've had an incident in front of a condo with 93 people that live in. I'm the president of the HOA in that building at 3915 St. Charles Avenue. This year, again, it was a night of Hermes and Crew d'Etat. There was a tent that was put up by students from LSU, all freshmen from the conversation we heard, which means they weren't 21, because I don't know any freshmen in school that's 21 years old. The tent took up the whole width of the neutral ground. They had gas-powered generators out there, playing music, most which could not be played publicly over airwaves because of the language. And they drowned out bands, and yet a policeman walked up to them an hour and a half before the parade, told them what they had was illegal, and they needed to take it down. I thanked the officer and said, thank you for enforcing it, and he said, I can't enforce it. Somebody will. Nobody did. And this is an incident that happens all the time. If we're going to make laws, let's enforce laws. If we're not going to enforce them, I got 93 people who'd be happy to put up a tent for all of us, for the whole neutral ground. I'd rather not do that, but if you're not going to enforce laws, there's a problem. We don't need to have meetings to talk about the problems. Drive down St. Charles Avenue, look at the problem. Let's have a meeting to determine solutions to the problem. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Janet Tobias, followed by Jim Goodwin.
Good morning. I want to repeat a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, our lives begin to end today that we do nothing about things that matter. We are here today because some of our neighbors or community members, they can't be here, but they gave me a list. What matters to us? Dogs at parade. We have an ordinance on the book that's saying dogs shouldn't be at parades. Smoking around elderly and babies. That shouldn't happen. They can cross the street on the other side of St. Charles Avenue to smoke. Sofas, ladders, and tents blocking the view at the parades. Float riders aggressively throwing bees. But we are here today because of the Crew of Tucks. Tucks because throwing racist symbols at the parade, a black baby doll with bees around the doll necks. This is not the first year for Tuck. Last year, they had the middle finger pointed to Mayor Contreras. These are things that we see, but they probably be doing things we don't know anything about. And so we are saying that this must stop. And it must stop with a fine. Tell us the name of the riders so that they can be banned from all parades. Float riders who are throwing, they should be barred for 5 years. And if the Crew of Tuck continue with this pattern, they shouldn't be able to ride in any parades again. And also, there is a way to throw bees. When you throw them, you should throw them, not aggressively throw bees at all. babies or whatever. Parades are a time when family and friends get together and we have a good time. We shouldn't be coming to parades experiencing the foolishness we are starting to experience at parades. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tobias. Next up, Jim Goodwin, followed by, Mr. Fisher's already spoke. For sure. Go ahead, Mr. Goodwin.
Jim Goodwin, I live at 537 Verrett. I'm here on my own behalf today, though I belong to numerous civic organizations. I just have a few items for popcorn for the council's consideration, just to think about. Don't have time to expound on them in the limited time that I have here. One of my main gripes is I think tarps are misapplied, because I go to Napoleon Street, and massive people observe it, which I'm proud of them for being that civil about it, because I don't really approve. I'm inclined to raid the tarps. But anyway, so there needs to be some sort of restrictions about tarps and how they allocate the space to those people. Also, in regards to stuff that's left on the route, especially before things like ladders and stuff, if they're leaving stuff unoccupied, it ought to be regulated that they have to label it with their name and address and phone number. And if they don't, get rid of them, all right? I would like to encourage the further use over the long term, set deadlines and goals and that kind of thing on recyclables, especially biodegradables. We do have problems with enforcement on ladder positions less than 6 feet from the curb. And we also have chairs that are infringing on the street, and that's a safety matter. So I don't know whether you ought to say 3 feet from the curb for chairs and bump ladders back to 9 feet or whatever, but I think all those should be set. Then develop strategies, of course, which is the crew's responsibility, to mitigate excessive delays. Again, some people complain about that. And another personal note, a lot of these come from some of my neighbors who go further down St. Charles around Jackson and Felicity. But regulate the number of bands and correlate it to the number of floats, just to make it more expeditious and recyclable. So that's really all I had. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Bornez? There you go. I cannot read your first name. That's why I said Ms. Bornez. Followed by Ms. Deborah Campbell.
Okay, my name is Apponetta Barnes.
Bar, there you go.
Okay. I'm going to tell my age. I just made 73, December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, 11th of Pearl Harbor. Now, I was born during the parades when blacks in black schools were not allowed to march. And they didn't have lights, so the flammable carriers, the symbol, what they used, in a porch light. And what it is that, what I'm saying is that even though it was racist during that time, it looked like whether they kept it undercover, whatever, today these people can express their racism through their throws. Now, Demian threw at me. This is a throw. When you throw like this, a target, whether it's your mama, your daddy, your grandma, the husband that messing up, the wife that messing up, and they have these targets. And these targets, people, even when you're not even looking, you understand? People who know you don't know. So what I'm saying is, what I'm saying, the mass and stuff and the hating should be addressed in a different way. Maybe they could use a eye mask or hating. Well, you could change that dressing of the head so you can identify. You can put cameras on the floats as well in front of the floats so you can see if any harm coming from the people out there. My mama used to say, because they used to do gauze, Roman gauze and Roman gauze and all that on the floors. And my mom used to say, if you're standing like that, it's like you're worshiping them. And I used to say, well, look, if you think you're going to worship them, you need to stay home. So now it's a family-friendly thing. But now people can express themselves more rather than hide their racism. So I advise that cameras be put on these floors mandatory and in front of the floor so you can see the people who catching the beans as well. And their hairdressing should.
Thank you. Next up, we have Deborah Campbell, followed by Ido Warfield.
Good morning. Thanks for having us today. Thanks to the City Council and the attendees for coming out to support what's happening in our city. We're asking you to end the racist incidents against Blacks and other people of color by Mardi Gras crew members, which have been subsidized by our tax dollars. Implement a fine for each incident starting at $5,000 for each crew. If a crew has 3 incidents, they can no longer parade in Orleans Parish. The other problems at Mardi Gras, implement a quick contact method for the public to file information and obtain a solution. Thank you.
Before we get to the next speaker, I know that there's been a lot of commentary on a $5,000 fine. Just so y'all know, the amount that we can fine is actually set by the legislature, and it is maxed at $500 per incident. There are 2 bills that are going through the legislative session right now that deal with the incidents that happened in Mardi Gras. In order for us to have more fine authority, those bills would have to give us more fine authority. So I appreciate that's something y'all, we'd love to have $5,000 fines. We don't currently have them, but either of those bills that are currently pending could expand that authority and give us more larger fines. Next up, we have Ms. Warfield, followed by, oh, Bobby already spoke. All right, Ms. Warfield.
Yes, my name is Ida Warfield. I'm a member of the Community Voice Organization, the Lower Ninth Ward Association, and the New Orleans Association of Black Social Workers. I am here as a grandmother today and a community member. I am here to say I am appalled that my granddaughter had to see the hanging dog and the other aggressive behavior that these carnival crews have shown. I feel that it was very hurtful, very disrespectful, and racist. I hope that something is done in this city to correct this grave injustice. My daughter went away to college, and she chose not to come back to New Orleans after leaving Indiana University. My granddaughter's going off to college after graduating next year. She probably will not come back to this city. Something needs to be done to correct all these errors and to make our children want to come back here and be productive children, because we are losing a lot of great children because of the way this city is performing. I hope something is done about it, and I thank you.
Thank you. Robert Morton, followed by Virginia Saucy.
Good morning. My name is Robert Morton. I'm the president of a condominium at 4007 St. Charles Avenue, directly next door to Mr. Hagedorn's building. Councilmember Harris's office encouraged us to be here today to talk about the events of Friday night, the 13th. As Mr. Hagedorn described, large tents, generators, loud music, offensive music that drove our 62 families that live in our building off of the parade route in front of the building where they pay property taxes. Between our 2 buildings, it's about $400,000 in assessed value, and they lost the ability to have Mardi Gras in front of their own homes. That's a problem. I also want to share with you a story from that night later on. At one point, sheriff officers entered our building, because we have big glass windows overlooking the parade route, to start to identify people from the crowd, college-age students under these tents that had flags that resembled Fred's Bar from Baton Rouge. They were throwing things at each other and at the parade. So the sheriff's officers entered our building, went upstairs to start identifying who it was. After they did that, and they left that evening, the crowd then threw things at our building, thinking that we were the ones involved in that. Something has to be done to enforce the basic safety rules. Gas-powered generators, it's one step away of a major incident. There's no reason that can't be policed beforehand. Large speaker systems that eliminate the ability to hear anything, there's no reason that can't be enforced. Tents with families, completely different area of gray that I can understand, a parent wanting to protect their child, but these other things need to be addressed. Thank you.
All All right, Virginia, followed by Belden Batiste.
I just wanted to make a comment as a citizen of the parade route, as a resident of Napoleon Avenue. When I was growing up, there was standing room only in the intersections. Now, people put up tents in the intersections. As a safety issue, when you live on the parade route, you literally spend the whole week in fear that something's going to happen and you're not going to get a fire engine or an ambulance through. And I have a number of senior citizens on my porch every parade. I wanted to suggest that the city consider using the line of light posts on the neutral grounds on St. Charles and on Napoleon as a barrier, and everything in front of it is standing room only, like they've done at Jazz Festival, so that the people can walk to the parade and go see it without having to climb over ladders or trip over chairs. We need a standing room only zone like we used to have. I don't think you have to have a ladder 2 feet from the curb, and the police come out with measuring tapes and ask people to move them, and as soon as they turn their backs and are back in the crowd, the ladder is back on the curb. Chairs lined up, dozens of chairs. It is an issue across the board, so I just want you all to consider standing room only options and using the portalettes to post the laws so that people from outside the parish see them in their faces. The city puts their own portalettes out. They could use that space so that the policemen have something to point to and say, you're breaking the law. Because there are a lot of people from the parish bringing their dogs, bringing their pop-up toilet tents, and making life very difficult for those of us that are living there. So thank you very much for considering this.
Councilmember, may I make a comment, please? To Virginia's point, we did ask the Department of Sanitation to post the rules, the new rules on the portalettes. I think that happened, that consideration or suggestion came too late. Okay. Hopefully in the future we can post those not only on the portalettes but just around the route so people can see exactly what they can and cannot do.
That would be fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Belden Batiste, followed by Renata Collins.
Good afternoon, Council. How y'all doing? I must remember Dorothy Mae Taylor. She stood right in the council, and when they wouldn't let black people parade in their parades. But I want to start off with Jason comment, Jason Hughes. You made good comments, brother. But I watched the three people at Tux, they refused to say it was racist. So that comment you made, brother, you stuck to it, and I appreciate that. Leslie Harris, I appreciate what you said, because they refused to talk about sexism and racism. JP, I appreciate when I saw the videos you shot right after they did it. Amy, I heard you brought it to the mayor about the black child. I appreciate that. But the thing is, Tuck stood right here and refused to say it was racist. Now, what I'm saying is, JP and the council, we need to send them to Ryan Chisholm with the People Institute where they can get training about black people. But when black children seeing a baby hanging off the float with a noose on their neck, it ain't no excuse for that. At the end of the day, we must stand up to Tuck and call it what it is. And look, much as I love the Zulu, I don't want to hear about investigation. They should already know who hit that child in the head with the bottle. But I want to commend y'all councilmen that stood up. But this racism got to stop. And it got to stop now. And we got to hold crews accountable with no excuse. And with that baby doll, it should be a hate crime. Because that black child will never forget that. But if Tuck was serious, they would have did what the mayor and Amy did and told a black child, let's send you to Disney World. Show her how sorry you is. Teach her about racism. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batiste. Renata Collins.
Good afternoon, Renata Collins. Today I'm here. Thank you guys for doing all that you have done. And I know that the quality of life is one of the biggest things that I hope is our agenda here. So one of the things that I consider is, can we create a video to show people how we Mardi Gras in New Orleans? So when they're coming into the airport, they can see how we Mardi Gras in New Orleans, which will be less of tents, generators, and things of that nature. We got to bring back the education. Education is extremely important, because if they don't know what to do or how to act, then we actually are accountable. So if we educate the community, because we have a lot of people who are not from New Orleans that are Mardi Gras here. They think it is a jazz fest. They think it is another type of festival, but Mardi Gras is a different temperature. And the education needs to go out throughout the community and to our visitors so that we could have a better quality Mardi Gras. When it comes to, well, this is a tough topic, and I was trying to avoid it, but I can't. When it comes to the baby doll hanging from the beads, it's totally unacceptable. I tried to rationalize from a 360-degree angle, and I still couldn't find nothing but an unacceptable behavior. And I'm asking that we hold every person who's operated in such manner accountable for their actions. And not one time, but to hold them to them as much as we have to continue to remember the issues in that site that we see, that hatred, and not to know who's for us or who's against us. That needs to be a continuous reminder to them that this is unacceptable, not in New Orleans, not on our watch, not during Mardi Gras, and not during the everyday living. Thank you so much for your time.
Councilmember Green.
I appreciate this discussion today, and I just want to emphasize that there are hundreds of thousands of spectators of Mardi Gras who don't seal off areas for themselves, who recognize that the value of Mardi Gras is in everyone enjoying it. I recognize that there are tens of thousands of riders on floats who throw beads and doubloons and have a good time. Don't spend a ton of time being political or promoting things that they know they're not to promote. At the end of the day, this committee has a very important responsibility. But there are a lot of people, in my opinion, who need to take on a responsibility of just doing the right thing. You know that some of the things that you're doing, and we didn't even talk about the guys and women, the people on those floats who take big bags of beads. There were videos out there of big bags of beads being thrown at people. Some people who use their opposition to the police to make a statement as they go by, and they say crazy things from the floats. At the end of the day, this committee, again, is going to do its job, and I appreciate the public from being here, but I want to talk to the people who know that they're doing wrong. Stop. Enjoy this season. Stop being so selfish. Stop being so inner-looking, and look at everyone around you who is there to enjoy themselves. There's a lot of things that I see. I tell you, I have talked to people on floats who say that in this day and age, there are still float riders who direct their throws to people of certain ethnicities. There are people who take bags of beads and throw them at the police because they have a statement to make. There are people who speak out against ICE but use Mardi Gras parades to do so. Just do the right thing and have a good time, and stop being selfish. If you put a tent on St. Charles Avenue and goes from one side to the other, you're doing the wrong thing. I don't care if you're a student. I don't care about your spending tax dollars here in the city. You're doing the wrong thing. All that I'm going to say is on the issues of racism and of being selfish, stop it, do the right thing, and I look forward to working with the committee to introduce whatever we have to introduce to try to get common sense and unselfishness and some support for others into the law. But the main thing that can happen is that if you know you're doing wrong, stop it.
All right. In closing on this topic, first off, tents are already prohibited. So as far as like having to pass new laws, we got current laws say tents are prohibited. Let me say that again. Tents are prohibited. Now, what we are going to have to do as a committee is look at how we're going to enforce the existing law. The reality is that we are going to have to look at our municipal laws to make it a fine that goes with a ticket. Because the reality is that it is not feasible, as I said previously and publicly, once you're talking about the Friday, the Saturday, the Sunday of Mardi Gras, the likelihood that we have the resources in between parades to claw up all this nonsense is not a thing. Enforcing the laws on underage drinking is against the law. ATF should be on the route dealing with kids who are underage drinking on the route. These are things that are just resources that have to be properly deployed, and we have to have a better plan on how to enforce Mardi Gras. Some of the suggestions that have already been made to our committee thus far, as some of you may have known, we moved the Mardi Gras times up on certain crews. For the first time, I think in history, Muses finished before midnight, which is, you think that is a minor thing. What that does, it doesn't just help the riders be able to get off the float before midnight. Sanitation, police got off the road with enough time to go home and sleep. So in all likelihood, we'll be moving other parades up because giving respect to our sanitation workers and first responders is important. We are going to look at language strengthening prohibited items on floats. Obviously, glass is already prohibited. What allegedly happened at Zulu should not have happened. Glass is prohibited. Drinking, for the most part, is prohibited on floats. These are all things that are existing law. We are going to have to look at how we give additional resources to our first responders to deal with it, but also to put more accountability on crews for when they break the law. We are going to work with NOPD to significantly change policy on when floats are taken out of service or when incidents occur. What would have been very helpful to both this committee and the crews is when something happens, you have to generate a report. Generating that report lets us know who was injured, who the witnesses were, and lets everyone follow up on this. It is not enough to pull the crew and the float out of service. If we can't follow up, then that's an inconvenience, not a punishment. Because the same people that were on that float that had to walk that day, if they can parade the next year, they were inconvenienced, but there was no long-term repercussions for that behavior. So when you pull people off floats, now that's going to help us too, because let's be very clear, if you have people that are aggressively throwing at NOPD, at individuals, at different groups of people, when there's an incident report, listen to me, riders, that incident report will have your name in it. So if you are doing bad behavior and NOPD draws up an incident report, that incident report is a public record. So wearing that mask during Mardi Gras, which allows people to think they can do bad behavior, if NOPD is creating incident reports, you no longer have the ability to think wearing that mask and that costume covers up bad behavior. It helps the crews figure out who the bad actors are, but it lets the public know who the bad actors are. We're going to improve the enforcement of prohibited items along the route. I think, Virginia, your point's an excellent one. It might come to a point, ladies and gentlemen, where the barricades aren't just on the street. The barricades might be back to the lamppost. We may say you can't you can't come across the first line of barricades with a tent or with a chair, or with tarps. We may have to create a standing room only zone because other than doing something like that's a clear bifurcation, you really can't stop the people setting up the tents on the route. And it sucks that we have to come to that point where we have to be your parents. To what Councilman Green said, this is all common sense. You don't want someone setting up a tent or ladders in front of where you stand. You don't do that in your own parish. Why are you doing that here? Now that's going to be a cost entail with that, but that's something that we're going to revisit. Because I'll tell you right now, very candidly, we're already revisiting the cost of Mardi Gras. Because right now the city bears tremendous costs for putting Mardi Gras on, and we're going to have to pass that cost on to crews. Because improving Mardi Gras is going to cost more money that we don't have. The last thing, which is also very important, I appreciate downtown development being here. If you set up stands and you think it's okay to leave your stands up and let Matt and his team pick up your trash, that's over. Whether we have to charge you a sanitation fee on the front end, whether we have to fine you on the back end, if you put up a stand and get that permit, we're going to get our money out of you on the front end for cleaning up after you because you're not cleaning up after yourselves. Now, this is not a end of the list. This is just the list of what we heard today. I think that also it's important to note to the crews, you heard from Matt Torrey, we got to do something about the bags. I think that it's not too much to ask for crews to take your beads out the bags at the top of the route and throw them away, because you saw we don't need our sanitation workers at 2, 3 in the morning chasing bags down the street. That is some preemptive work you could do at the top of your crew. Just take all the bags, the beads out the bags, put the beads out in strands. But anything we could do to make our sanitation workers' jobs easier and their lives easier, we should be doing. So we're going to continue to collect information, collect other stuff we get from the public. We appreciate everyone being here today. I do want to identify, I think of Mr. Phillipson. Are you still here today? Okay, sorry. Ms. Phillipson, you want to comment on cleanup. And I'm sorry I missed you. You can come up right now and give that comment if you still want to do it. Ms. Phillipson had actually filled out a card to speak on sanitation. I missed the card earlier. I apologize.
I just wanted to talk about the Broadway area because we're talking about cleanup with Mardi Gras, and that's something that should have been done every day. And I just, it's Broadway between St. Charles and Willow. I mean, starting Saturday morning before Mardi Gras, and then Sunday morning, Monday morning, and then you have Tequila Sunrise. And the residents just, that's it. I mean, it's everywhere, and unfortunately, they're not getting the same pickup. I mean, they have the crowds out there on Broadway, just like you do on the parade route, but they're not getting the daily pickup. And it's just, I mean, I went out, I got a call, went out there with a group of people. We started shooting video on Saturday morning, and it was just a mess in front of the houses, all along the street. And it doesn't go really past Willow. It's St. Charles to and even Willow, I would say maybe a block before, I think there's the SAE house somewhere around there. But it's just it's all right there, and it's a mess. And so, I don't know. I mean, it's just, and the thing of it is that we're talking about, people moving back. You have young professionals that are going to want to move back. I hope my children get to move back. Right now, that's where they would have to live, because that's where the rent, that's where there's the most vacancy. That's where it's affordable rent. There's no way that, I mean, if you're in your mid-20s, late 20s, full-time job, you're not going to want to live around all that. And it continues to be a problem with the doubles to dorms, and mainly it's Broadway during Mardi Gras. So, I mean, I would like it, if there's any way that sanitation can make that part of, or even if they do commercial pickup next year, it needs to be on the same thing as the parade schedule.
Thank you. We have one more item to cover today, which is a voting item, item number 4. Any comments on those previous items?
We had comments on carnival season.
Okay, then add those to the record.
Yep.
Item number 4 for discussion and vote ordinance to amend and reordain the Code of City of New Orleans to clarify when a carbon monoxide detector is required for the Healthy Homes Program. Otherwise, provide to respect here too. This is an amendment to the Healthy Homes Ordinance to address when carbon monoxide detectors are available or required at certain facilities. We are doing this amendment in concert with Healthy Homes and other groups to deal with making sure that affordable housing can remain affordable. We have some people that like to comment. Monique Blossom with Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center.
Oh, there we are. Okay. Good morning. Monique Blossom, the Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center, 1340 Poydras Street. We know the intended purpose of requiring carbon monoxide detectors is to prevent needless death from happening, and that not all units may require them. I'm just here to ask the full council, the health department, and the administration to continue to use your communication channels to promote safe usage of portable generators. Here in New Orleans, we lose power for a variety of reasons. We talked about confetti canyons already, but between hurricane storms and now snow events and the occasional bird squirrel incident, I think as well happens, people do turn to portable generators for electricity more than they really should. So I'd like to ask you to encourage folks that if they're using a portable generator, they are also using a carbon monoxide detector, so we can prevent that needless loss of life. I checked on Lowe's, they're only $23.98 currently, so it's a cheap investment to save a life. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Next up, we have David Miller with RPG.
Good afternoon, members of the council. I'm David Miller. I'm here to simply add my voice in support of the Healthy Homes Ordinance Amendment. Simply pointing out the obvious that a carbon monoxide detector doesn't serve any purpose in a unit that doesn't have any natural gas fixtures or appliances. It's an expense that need not be incurred by a property owner in that it doesn't serve any health or safety purpose. So I think it's a worthy amendment to the ordinance, and I encourage that it be adopted.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll move to approve. Can I get a second? Second by Councilmember Green. Please vote your machines. 4 yeas, no nays. It is adopted. Councilman Green moves we adjourn. Seconded by myself. All there say aye. Aye. 4 yeas, no nays. We're adjourned.